You know, friends, open borders have consequences. The Mexican national wanted in the execution-style shooting of 5 of his neighbors in Texas remained at large more than 24 hours later Sunday morning and could be anywhere by now. This is according to officials. Francisco Oropeza, 38, should be considered armed and dangerous. The sheriff claims that he could be anywhere and also explained how investigators had widened their perimeter from about 5 square miles to as much as 10 to 20 square miles, depending on whether or not he had crossed the Highline wire. Authorities had found an abandoned cell phone and articles of clothing lying around, and tracking dogs from the Texas Department of Correction had picked up the scent, but then they lost the scent in the water. Now, we talked about this yesterday as this was happening. If you'll remember, I went live at about 8 a.m. yesterday morning. This is about the time that more details and information was coming out. The shooting took place at 11:30 p.m. Friday night. So when I was going live, this was 8.5 hours after the shooting itself had occurred. We talked about this person being a Mexican national at the time, and I said very frankly that he's very likely in Mexico by now. He's not quite an hour north of the Houston, Beaumont, Texas area, kind of right in between there, and it would probably take him about 5 to 6 hours to drive all the way down to the border. Now, a lot of things that don't make sense in this case. First of all, this guy is supposed to be some drunk guy. In other words, they're saying that he was intoxicated when all this took place. If you'll remember, the neighbors came across towards his property at 11-ish at night and asked him to stop shooting his AR-15. Now, they claim that this is an AR-style 223. The fact that they're not calling it an AR-15 makes me think this is probably a Ruger Mini 14. That's just my guess, because they're usually pretty quick to name the gun whenever they know specifically what it is, but whenever it doesn't quite fit into that box that they want to ban, they'll tell you it's an AR style and they'll tell you what the caliber is. In this case, I'm pretty sure they're talking about a Ruger Mini 14, but we'll wait and see. I'm just telling you, this is how the media frames things and starts to shape it to keep your mind thinking that AR-15s are totally bad. Well, this guy refused to stop shooting his rifle in his front yard, according to reports, came across to the neighbors, shot the wife, first of all. This is according to the man who rents the home. And then he went through the house looking for people to shoot. All these shots that were terminal, all the people who were killed were shot from the neck up, execution style. So we have an intoxicated person, intoxicated Mexican national, next door to a Honduran family. And we have execution style shots from a drunk who also has managed to evade the FBI, Texas State Police, the Sheriff's Department over there. All the technology that we have in this area and in the United States, thermal imaging, drones, dogs, everything that we have to track somebody in a wooded area, we can track somebody in the middle of the frickin' Amazon jungle and find them. All this technology, and we can't find a drunk. Mind you, a drunk that made precision shots to the neck and head area, just like an execution would be. Just like if somebody had not paid their coyote fare to get up here. Remember, when these people, especially from the lower countries below Mexico, come into the country, into Mexico, and then eventually into the United States, they are met at the southern border. Mexico does not want them in their country. They want them in our country. They want them in the United States. So the coyotes and the drug cartels escort these people for a large fee across and through Mexico into the United States. Now, they take an upfront number of money from them as a down payment, and when they get to the border, by that time, they've exchanged and negotiated what the final payments are going to be. We're talking about years of payments to the cartel from these families. And what they'll typically do is, if they can't locate the family, in other words, this family, the rest of their family would be in Honduras. If they can't get to the family, if the payments stop in Honduras, then they go get you wherever you are in the United States. Does this look like that's what this is? It certainly does. Now, granted, none of this adds up because, again, we're talking about a Mexican national who had been deported before, living next door to a Honduran family. It sounds like they had already staked claim to these places. Now, it doesn't mean that this Mexican national was not keeping an eye on this Honduran family. This Honduran family had just recently moved up from Houston, obviously an area where it's really hard to hide in Houston. They had moved from Houston up to Cleveland. So it's very possible that somebody was keeping an eye on this Honduran family, and maybe they were leaving Houston in order to avoid having to pay those payments. Again, all speculation here, and I apologize for those of you that your feelings get hurt because I'm speculating, but you tell me why this story is what it is. You tell me why a drunk at 11:30 at night can manage to shoot 5 people with precision strikes and evade the United States FBI, Texas State Police, and the Sheriff's Department. You tell me how that's possible. Because they're saying that this man ditched his phone and a piece of clothing or something like that in this area. And for some reason, they cast this really small net over a very small area. This guy had a good 6 hours in the dark to run from police, to run from law enforcement, to run from the FBI. The FBI wasn't on the scene immediately anyway. I just find it really hard to believe because these things are not adding up. Again, we're talking about a person who was previously deported. Are we going to ignore the fact, as some of the people that are arguing with me on Twitter right now, if you want to, go follow me on Twitter and you'll see some of these arguments. There are anti-gun wackos on Twitter who are telling me, oh, so now you're going to blame this on the open border, while they themselves are blaming an AR-15. Let's put two things side by side. If we have an open border that allows anybody, including killers, Mexican drug cartels, rapists, child molesters, drug pushers, fentanyl people, you put any kind of thing you want through our border with no opposition, not even so much as a speed bump. You tell me if that is more dangerous to every American out there than an AR-15 sitting on a table in somebody's house. You tell me which one you think is going to have more of a dramatic effect on our country and the outcome of things like this. This person crossed that border well before they ever had any intention of having an AR-15, I can assure you of this, or whether they had any intention of killing this Honduran family. This person was in this country well before they ever had any desire to do this. If a person could take it upon themselves to make precision strikes and shoot people in the head, including an 8-year-old, they have evil intentions in their heart. It doesn't matter what they would have found or had. This person would have committed a heinous crime like this at some point, and I'll bet he's committed a heinous crime like this before. So you tell me which one has more of a dramatic impact on how Americans live safely. The existence of an AR-15 or the existence of a wide open border?
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. He's so horrible.